Hello, this is Cynthia Rocky, and I'm going to be sharing with you strength and balance, the theory behind the exercises. Before I begin, I just want to say that I credit Rachel Frazier from bringing this amazing Stay Active and Independent for Life SAIL program to East Tennessee. It was her vision that started the Senior Safety Task Force, and because of her commitment to fall prevention, it has remained strong through the years. And also thanks to Sydney Shetro, who has taken it from East Tennessee across our state. Now that Rachel has shared some history of the SAIL program and fall prevention facts, let's look at the theory behind the SAIL fall prevention exercise program, specifically the importance of strength and balance. We will examine the human systems that influence our risks of falling and the consequences of impaired balance. So what are the consequences of impaired balance? Increased risk of falls is one, and reduced functional independence is another. As we age, there is a decline in skeletal muscle tissue, which is called sarcopenia. Loss of muscle tissue mass or muscle mass also translates into loss of muscle function and strength. As we age, we will experience involuntary muscle loss of approximately 30 to 50% by the time we hit 60 years of age. This is change that is significant and can cause loss of function and loss of independence. Balance changes that occur as we age are also influenced by three systems: the motor, sensory, and cognitive systems. Obviously, we all want to enjoy aging well, so the challenge is how to slow the decline in these systems. Before we look at how to slow the decline, let's first review each system in more detail so we can understand how to make better choices to not only slow the decline, but actually even improve in some of these areas of health as we age. The motor system is a set of central and peripheral structures in our nervous system that support motor function and controls all voluntary movements. The peripheral structures include the skeletal muscles and neural connections with muscle tissues. The central structures include the cerebral cortex, the brainstem, the spinal cord, a system which is a collection of nerve fibers that travel from the cerebral cortex all the way to the end in both the brainstem or the spinal cord. So basically, motor control is the regulation of movement by way of the nervous system, which includes reflexes as well as directed movement, all of which changes as we age, creating slower reaction time. A healthy older adult can preserve a level of mobility comparable to that of young adults. The older adults, though, may have difficulty generating efficient reactive responses when they slip to stay in balance. The sensory system, knowing where the body is in space and the direction of our motion. It's also part of our nervous system. And we lose function in vision, hearing, and touching, and taste and smell as we age. Our senses give us information about the world, and these senses become less sharp and can make it harder to notice details as we age. In other words, noticing the edge of a concrete step or uneven ground, or even depth perception. Sensory information is converted into nerve signals that are carried to the brain. There are signals that turn into meaningful sensations. A certain amount of stimulation is required before we can become aware. Particularly as we age, The minimal level of sensation is the threshold, and that raises during aging. Thus, we need more stimulation to be aware, which sometimes puts us at risk of accidents. The cognitive system brings balance and requires our attention. It can decrease our overall attention capacity if our cognition is not sharp. It can also reduce the ability to allot required attention when performing multiple tasks. As we age, loss of brain connections slows our reaction time, and as they say, you have to be quick on your feet to stay in balance. So it requires that we pay attention to the details of moving in space and in our environment. As a result of cognitive decline, it may take longer to commit new information to our memory because of a decrease in our overall attention or change in our environment. Additionally, it may take longer to process information, which reduces the ability to perform multitask quickly. Finally, strategic memory, which is remembering names and numbers and trivia, begins to decline at around the age of 20. So by the time we reach our 50s or our 60s, we generally notice those cumulative changes as significant. However, the good news is that interventions that best target these issues are adequate nutrition and, you're right, exercise. Which brings us to the Comprehensive Fall Prevention Stay Active and Independent for Life SAIL program. The components of a SAIL class are warm-up, aerobics, balance exercises, strength exercises, and stretching with an educational component. I affectionately term these components that make up the SAIL program as WOBs because it's easy to remember and it has stuck. We're now going to look at each of these components in greater detail and discuss why the class is conducted in this format, as well as learn which have mandatory moves included. Warm-ups gradually increase circulation, and that's the purpose of them. Always include the warm-up, even if the class gets a late start. Likewise, encourage latecomers to the class to also start with a few minutes of warm-ups before joining the class, even if it's just marching in place. We never omit warm-ups because of safety concerns, and it would change the fidelity of the program. Another recommendation is to ensure that you get a participant registration form and liability waiver from each participant before they start the class. Be aware it is important to check their medical issues on the registration form, even if it is a brief review and quick conversation with them. You want to know who has diabetes and if they bring emergency snacks for low blood sugar, as well as what meds they take, which can cause dizziness and even affect their heart rate, like beta blockers. You'll learn more about paperwork later in the training. But warm-ups will help to increase circulation, heart rate, prepare the body for more vigorous exercises, reduce the risk of energy, and that's very important because sudden vigorous workouts can strain the heart of older people, but also younger people as well. Next up is aerobics. Aerobics increases the heart rate and breathing rate for an extended period of time. One tip we learn is to cue the class to count along with us, which will ensure that they are not holding their breath during the aerobics component. Cardiovascular is important because it makes the heart and the blood system work harder. Keep a visual check for red faces or pale faces during this sequence and pace the class by showing modifications to manage the heart rate with arms lowered or slowing the cadence. Also, cue the participants to listen to their bodies and as a leader demonstrate both seated and standing options for aerobics. There are scales of exertion available for the class to encourage everyone to measure their own intensity. And finally, the recommendations for aerobics is 30 minutes of moderate intensity 5 days a week, or 30 minutes of vigorous intensity 3 days a week. The SAIL program uses the cooling down period of balance as an opportunity to do the mandatory scripted balance exercises. This is the first component that has mandatory moves. Starting with dynamic exercises and then progressing to static balance exercises is part of this program. It allows the heart rate to gradually decrease because ending a workout suddenly can put a strain on the heart. Thus, slowly decreasing the heart rate is important, which usually starts with a brisk walk around the room or around their chair, then slowing with each lap until they're strolling by about the third lap. This can also help to reduce the risk of injury due to falls and help them maintain their independence. It's a nice time to focus on breathing as well. The next component is strength exercises. And this requires weights, which is also included in the mandatory moves. As we discussed earlier, muscle mass, strength, and endurance decline significantly with age. Bone density has been proven to increase with weight-bearing exercises, and slowing bone loss delays the onset of the most common form of osteoarthritis. All of these things help to decrease the likelihood of fractures and falling when you strengthen the muscles. Stronger muscles equal improved balance. Strength exercises increase activity level, they improve flexibility, control weight, and helps you lose inches. Although there is no specific number of minutes nationally recommended for strength training, it is recommended that you do strength training twice weekly and rest between each day to allow for muscle mass increase and resting of the muscles. SAIL suggests 15 to 18 minutes for upper and lower body strength moves combined. And also, these mandatory moves ensure that all major muscle groups are included. The biceps and triceps, shoulder flexion, knee and hip flexion and extensions, plantar or toe stands, and crunches, just to name a few. The last component of WOBs is stretching with education. Changes in elasticity and compliance of connective tissue as we age lead to decreased flexibility and range of motion. Ligaments and other connective tissue become less elastic and flexible over time. So maintaining good flexibility is an important part of remaining independent. Because of the changes that occur in the muscular skeletal system as we age, our joints typically decrease range of motion. To help reduce change and chronic pain in joints and muscles, stretching can really make a difference. As people age, the tissue around joints tends to thicken. Cartilage, the connective tissue that cushions the joints and aids in movement, tends to decrease around certain joints also. The hips and knees are especially prone to cartilage depletion. Stretching plays an important role in flexibility and general mobility. It's recommended that you hold the stretches for 10 to 30 seconds for each stretch and do 3 to 4 repetitions for each stretch. Older people tend to exercise less frequently for a variety of reasons. And so to make it enjoyable as they stretch can really help them relax and reduce fatigue. It's noted that instructors don't hold the full length of time because they get to the end of class and sometimes run out of time. But try to be careful about that and hold it for at least the 10 to 30 seconds. Additionally, hydrating every 15 minutes during class along with stretching will help reduce the buildup of lactic acid in the muscles and decrease soreness the next day, which can also help folks look forward to consistently attending the class. Information from the Seniors Fall Prevention Study found that some older adults may use the internet, but even for those who do, navigating websites can be confusing and difficult, no matter your age. So education is an important component as well. Older adults actually read written information. Older adults need general health care and health information and falls prevention information. And falls prevention information can be difficult to find. 70% of older adults will make changes to reduce their risk of falling if given the correct information from a professional. We use a quarterly cell newsletter, which can be used as a handout. There are many articles that others may bring in from reputable sites that can be shared for education. And there is a sale guide available for distribution to participants, which is also a great source of information. As a leader, you can use the sale guide to share those educational bullets and components as well. Also, another reason for education is that medical insurance companies are now requiring that patients are educated about their conditions, and this can help. So that's all for Strength and Balance, Chapter 3A, Theory Behind the Exercises. Thank you.